Welcome to Technology Solutions for a Post-COVID World. This is the 12th in our Navigating Your Business Through COVID-19 webinar series. These webinars are being recorded and will be available for review on our website in approximately 24 hours after the session. Today's webinar will explore technology solutions such as virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, that may be in the future of your company or your industry. This presentation is made possible by the Media and Emerging Technologies Lab, Immersive Storytelling Residency Program at the UNC School of the Arts. I'm Bob Weston, Director of the SBTDC Statewide COVID-19 Business Recovery and Resiliency Program, a CARES Act-funded initiative expanding our capacity to assist small businesses in successfully navigating the COVID-19 crisis. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Byron Hicks, our Executive State Director of the SBTDC. Byron was named the State Director of the Small Business and Technology Development Center in January 2021 after over 10 years of service to our organization. He also serves as the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Business and Technology Extension Programs in the Office of External Affairs, Partnerships, and Economic Development at NC State University. The SBTDC is the business and technology extension of the University of North Carolina system. For over 36 years, the SBTDC has been a resource for business owners, providing confidential counseling, educational programs, and a connection to university resources that helps them make their businesses better. The SBTDC operates 10 regional centers across the state that are hosted by our UNC system campuses, with 16 offices serving all 100 North Carolina counties. Business resiliency counselors are now embedded with each of our regional centers. I'd like to turn the program over now to Ryan Schmaltz, Director of the Media and Emerging Technology Metal Lab at the UNC School of the Arts School of Filmmaking. Ryan is the director of the lab. He's the founding director, and he leads the overall vision, programs, and operations and external partnerships. Metal was founded by the School of Filmmaking and is focused on content and experience creation through emerging technologies such as virtual reality, augmented reality, motion capture, and other technologies. Ryan has been at the forefront of technology since he began his career. He's a technology executive, speaker, advisor, and entrepreneur. Previously, he was executive vice president at Blipper, one of the world's leading companies for augmented reality and computer vision. Prior to Blipper, Ryan was an early leader at Uber and led cross-functional strategic initiatives for Uber's executive leadership. He also held roles at Microsoft, Adobe, and Deloitte. So Ryan, take us through the program.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks for that comprehensive intro. I really appreciate that. It's exciting to be here with everyone and excited for the program that we have in store for today. I'm joined with three very talented professionals that will be participating with me on this panel discussion. And what I'm going to do, and I think in terms of the program that we have in store for us, I'm going to let them introduce themselves in their own words, but we have definitely chosen Jamie Barris, Damian Hickey, and John Mcbride very thoughtfully for this program because they each represent different perspectives of the technology landscape. Whereas Damian with his company Beam is working to deploy new communication technologies in the form of augmented reality. John is working as a consultancy based here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, working across a variety of different types of enterprises, both large and small, as well as the government. And Jamie is leading innovation for Fidelity Investments and all of their 50,000 plus employees and how they bring new technologies to their customers and also from an internal operations perspective. So I think what you'll find is that these perspectives will be really interesting to think about how technology and those technologies that emerged or became more prolific during COVID will continue to shape things to come. So to start things off, what I thought we'd do is we'll have everyone do an introduction in their own words. And to start off, I think with the Media and Emerging Technology Lab, I'm just going to share a few slides with you. Let me get my slides open here. Hope everyone can see my screen. So to tell you a little bit more about the Media and Emerging Technology Lab and what we do here in Winston-Salem at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, is we really look at how emerging technologies can advance storytelling and content creation. And so that ranges a variety of technologies. That includes motion capture, VR, AR, game engine, haptics, and spatial audio, to name a few. But we're really looking at the emerging technology trends, so that way we can take and work with filmmakers, both in our film school and the industry at large, to take the palette of colors that they're using to paint and tell these stories in a variety of mediums, and squirt a few new ones onto the palette and say, now show me what you can paint with this. And that relates to both what we're doing academically within the School of the Arts, but also how we work with industry and the community. So one of the things that we have in our repertoire at Metal is our production facilities for content creation. And so we have a full production ready, professional grade motion capture stage. We're in the process now of standing up an LED wall, which is an emerging production technique used in shows like The Mandalorian, and also have a wide range of resources, both in terms of facilities for pre-production, production, and post-production, but also the expertise in terms of operating it and content creation. When we think of content creation, obviously what you see here is entertainment, but what we're working on ranges from everything from horror movies and virtual reality to training the next generation of physicians by using virtual reality or augmented reality to augment their studies. One of the other pillars that we do is really we think of as education and leadership, and it's a no-brainer. We're part of an academic institution, a world-leading conservatory, but it extends beyond that and also into the community. And one of the ways we do that is through our Future of Reality Summit, a biannual summit we look to bring back next year, now that things are starting to open up and it's becoming more and more safe to do so. It's a 2-day conference where we bring together industry leaders, academics, professionals from all over the world to talk about their craft and how they're using emerging technologies and how those paths intersect from medicine to entertainment to logistics. We also host and participate in a series of community events, and I would describe this one as one of those. So, looking for ways to touch the community and get engaged with what's happening, and share our expertise, and also try to create value in the community. And then also through our immersive storytelling residency program. So this innovative program is a first of its kind. We bring together distinct skill sets, technical artists, software and game developers, and also screenwriters, give them a stipend and set them loose to create an immersive experience of their choosing over the course of 6 months. And our current cohort is currently here residing in our space here in Winston-Salem, and hails from New York, LA, Japan, and several local North Carolinians are also part of this cohort. So we're really excited about that and have seen tremendous support. And we also work a lot with industry. I mean, that's really the sort of what we're here to do. So, and that really is our bridge between the academia and the industry, and really focused again on storytelling and content creation. And so to give you a sense of that, we work a lot with Brenner Children's Hospital to improve patient experience, to working with the National Endowment of the Arts in support of our residency program. The SBTDC has been a tremendous supporter of all of our programs and initiatives. And then we also work across the community. So at the various initiatives happening locally, both in the entrepreneurial community of emerging startups coming out of the Triad region and across North Carolina, but also with Keenan Arts, different art installation groups and community engagement groups like Ideas City Winston-Salem and Center for Creative Economy. So that's us in a nutshell. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my co-panelists to introduce themselves. We'll run through a series of questions with them, but we definitely encourage your involvement and your questions. And so to the extent that to the extent that you have questions along the way, please feel free to start populating that Q&A button down at the bottom of your presentation. And at the end, we'll make sure we leave time to answer your questions. You'll also be able to raise your hand at the end of the session as well to ask your questions live. Thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first panelist, John Mcbride, to tell us a little bit more about his work at Looking Glass.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank everyone for joining us today. My name is John Mcbride. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Looking Glass XR. We're basically a XR, stands for extended reality solution provider of whether it's software or just pairing the right hardware with the right client. We work with companies from the North Carolina Zoo, Wake Health, the U.S. Air Force, and a bunch of medical companies. We basically are combining what's happening now with this new medium, which we feel is the next computer platform. And whether they want to do something in entertainment, they want to do something for safety or education, and we write the code. So there are a lot of platforms out there that can cross-pollinate to other companies, but sometimes a company just needs a custom project done, and that's where we step in, and we try to save them money by not pairing it with the wrong hardware or writing it in the right platform that they can get the most for their money. Besides that, we just consult, just starting the conversation. And I think a lot of companies, they don't have to break the bank to jump into this new platform. They just need to start the conversation and learn, and maybe step into the XR world when they're ready. That's it.
Thanks, John. And Jamie, if you'd like to go next.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks everyone for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jamie Barris. I'm actually out of Apex, North Carolina. I work for Fidelity, and Ryan, you gave me way too much credit in the intro. Fidelity is very committed to innovation across the entire firm, and I work in one of many business units that lead innovation and research future technologies. My business unit is called FCAT, which is the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, and we are primarily responsible. We're the catalyst for the firm, where we look further out and try to leverage, scan, try and scale different technologies. And my main goal is to rapidly build POCs to prove the relevancy of the technology and understand what the technology is good for and what it's not. Inside our group, FCAT, there's a lot of different teams. We have a research team that's out there looking across the globe at trends, socioeconomic trends. We have a blockchain incubator. That's the underlying technology that runs digital currency like Bitcoin, if you're familiar with Bitcoin. We have teams that look into artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are researching quantum computing. And I'm in a group called Emerging Technology, where we're primarily focusing on augmented reality, virtual reality, and extended reality. All of the different types of headsets that you wear that you can see that content, how you deploy that content, and all the additional wearables, mobile phones, iPads, anything like that that you can use to actually see that content. So again, I appreciate the time to be here, and I'll pass it off to you, Damien.
Hey guys, good afternoon. I'm actually in the UK, so it's probably morning for you guys there. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm actually going to share very quickly with you a presentation, not to kind of go through it in entirety, more to illustrate what we do rather than tell you what we do. So if you have a smartphone, if you can open your camera and scan a QR code for me, you'll be asked to then accept some very quick permissions to access your camera microphone, and you can place a hologram into your own space. Hopefully it will all work for you. I'll give you a minute or so. So you can give me a thumbs up when you've got it and it's working. Okay, Ryan's working. Okay, so you guys can start seeing now basically what we do. So effectively, we have been looking at augmented reality for about 3 years. I joined the company about 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, I was actually an ex-colleague of Ryan's at Blipper. We ran delivery together globally. I've also worked client side, agency side, and find augmented reality just extremely intriguing. So I've focused my career now more often than not on this. However, we're not looking at augmented reality as another trinket. Actually, what we think is an opportunity for a communications game changer. So in fact, if we think about communication as we know it through digital at the moment, we've got a very flat medium in this respect to kind of video or calling or FaceTime. What we want to do is kind of take that further into augmented reality. And we've seen almost immediately with studies that we're doing from partnerships with people like Cisco and UCL, there's a uplift of empathy for an actual full body human being placed into your own environment. The opportunity actually comes from storytelling at large. We've been telling stories and communicating to each other since the birth of time, and we've been seeing that evolution over time. What we're now getting to is a more effective communication through digital, but we need to introduce body language as a primary way of ensuring that communication is done in a contextual manner. So we need to ensure that the subconscious brain is being looked after and cared for. And we are now at that kind of inflection point where these technologies are coming together. So rather than you and I talking as we are doing on video at the moment, maybe they're going to start using our glasses instead. These are actually Snap glasses. So these are Snap 3. And we're seeing that evolution kind of rapidly advance. We're seeing now Facebook and Ray-Ban come together. We've got Snap 3, Apple coming back into the market, Google coming back into the market. We can look at avatars, but we think actually real humans are the best place to be in terms of kind of communication. And you've seen that already from the illustration of H in the Lynx advert that we've just done with Unilever. What we want to do, however, is open this platform up to everybody. So we want to give everybody the ability to use holograms in the way that they kind of communicate. So it's an extension of everything that we know. And we're doing that through both our web platform using WebAR and for the app itself. And it's completely omni-channel. So it's a simple activation of a URL or a QR code. And you can do that with second screen experiences through TV, activations through e-commerce, QR codes in print media. We can activate across any social platform without any impediment into your content management system and even into wearables. So the idea really is to kind of bring all of these different communication platforms into one convergence with this notion of the ability for you and I to maybe stop having Zoom calls, but actually take our glasses once they're available and present each other into our own environment. That's what I do. Back to you, Ron.
Thanks so much, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate that. And so to dive into the questions, and Damien, maybe I'll start with you first. What I'd like to do is just sort of go back in time for a minute, back to March of 2020 as COVID was emerging. And can you talk me through and sort of, and I definitely would like to ask each of you this question, walk me through, from your organization's perspective, what that looked like and how you handled it within your role, what that meant for technology, and really what were the steps you were taking and the key decisions you were making along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're a startup. We now are, I would say, probably 2.5 years into our maturity of being a startup, and we're actually in the process of getting ready for Series A. And I think COVID, certainly from our business, really asked questions about who we were, what we were doing, and how we were going to get there, and actually would we survive in that process. And interestingly, I think there was a shift in the paradigm around communication from us having to be in an office in a particular environment to then having this need, actually, this business requirement or personal requirement to ensure that we've got access to each other via some other medium. And, often everybody kind of went, okay, well, we've got Zoom, we've got, Google Meets or Microsoft Teams or whatever it might be. We've got to lean into these technologies as much as possible. So how do we do that? What does that mean to us from a personal perspective, from a team perspective? how do we ensure that that communication is being managed correctly? But then there's a whole cultural perspective as well. So you're trying to build relationships with people, not only that you work with, but people that are coming into the business for the first time that you've never met. So you've got this kind of weird dynamic of actually trying to get used to somebody virtually. And, you know, you try and obviously maintain, I think, what you already know from kind of human interaction, but they're very different paradigms. So you're kind of being asked yourself the question about, you know, am I doing the right thing? Am I maybe asking the right question? Am I asking it in the right way? Should I be, you know, less informal, less formal? You know, where's the right thing for me? And I think actually over the last year, I think more often than not, people kind of just got a little bit more comfortable with it. I wouldn't say that it's a natural state, but it's definitely, for me now, a much more comfortable state. Equally, I think as a business, we've become much more productive. We've got a very dispersed team. So we've got a team in Siberia, in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in Singapore, here in the UK, in Brazil, in New York, and now in LA as well. And working collectively as a unit across not only those regions, but cultural positions and then different time zones. I don't think it would necessarily be as effective as it is at the moment for us if COVID wasn't around. So COVID has been this kind of double-edged sword in that the business has had to shift, and it's had to shift, I think, quite dramatically from where we thought we were to where we are now, and whatever that kind of turbulent journey that we've been on over the last 12, 18 months really means to us, and where we find ourselves. And then how do you position the business equally? You know, from a personal perspective, again, a cultural perspective. And I think culture is very key in, I think, all of our businesses, no matter whether you're a small startup as we are or a large conglomerate. You're trying to ensure that people are able to interact and react together in as much a natural space as possible. But I think this is here to stay. So, you know, the reason we're leaning in very much to this kind of whole communications idea around augmented reality or virtual reality or cross reality is that I think it's going to give a much deeper and richer experience to what we know as video at the moment. So my view around augmented reality is probably less that you and I knew it at Blipper, which is very much a kind of a 3D world. But now it's kind of with the introduction of an emergence of web AR, which becomes much more accessible and attainable across the world. How do you ensure that everybody understands that this technology is for there to be used and to be played with, and for them to understand what that actually looks like and whether it's relevant to them or not.
Thanks, Damien. And John, Jamie, how about for you? How did things evolve and emerge for you in your respective roles?
You want me to go? I'll go first.
Either one.
Go for it.
Yeah. So Looking Glass is also a startup. We've been around since 2015, and so when we got into this extended reality the market was nowhere ready for it. We just got in early. We wanted to learn. We wanted to make sure we were on the right path. And 2020 was going to be our big year. We had a lot of announcements to make and things to push. So when the world, as we know it, started taking on water, and I think everyone besides us were trying to bail it out and figure out what's next. The curious thing is we had projects that were going to happen, and when COVID hit, they went away, and it was a sucker punch. But what happened is we've been selling the idea of this is coming for a long time, and a lot of companies that we just had that conversation. And if you look back, we were still selling, but we had nothing to sell. And so when we were just selling the ideas is be on the lookout. This is what the future is going to look like. And we were surprised a month after everything get locked down, our plans changed. About 3 or 4 companies that we talked to in 2017 called us up and go, hey, is this VR thing real? Because we can't train, we can't. And Ryan will remember this. During the pandemic, Red Bull reached out to us, and I looped Ryan into the conversation. And the unique thing about them is they were not using this technology at all. And once we started educating the person that reached out to us, they realized that even if we could provide a solution for them, they had no way to deploy it. They had 140,000 employees, and we even mailed them a headset to kind of try out. And once that happened, the eyes opened, the brain opened, like the possibilities. So they came back to us and said, we can't do anything with you yet because we don't have the internal gears moving to deploy this. This is the next big thing. We need to. So they actually created a position, and Ryan knows a lot more about it than me, but they even created a position to start the conversation internally that this is coming. The company needs to prepare for it. So that was the building blocks for us. We learned, like Damon said, this just fast-tracked people's idea of the capabilities of augmented reality, of virtual reality for not just employees, but learners. I think if any of you have children, they even had to change the way they educate. Some of it didn't work, some of it did. And school systems are now prepping for whether they're going to use headsets for chemistry, for biology. We're working with a company that's getting ready to deploy 7,000 VR headsets in the New York area for the next school semester. So for us, it was a sucker punch. We kind of just looked forward that this can't be the end of us. We thought about pivoting in different ways, but COVID really helped educate people who were probably 2 or 3 years away to even consider using this type of technology. And I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Great stories, John. Thanks for sharing those. So, at Fidelity, I think from where I was sitting, I was very pleased with how quickly our leadership responded to the pandemic and made decisions rapidly. We had, within 12 hours, 70% of our 40,000 employees were working from home. And that's just a really good call out that, with the innovation that we do and being a catalyst and kind of getting prepared for things like that, we were ready to react and respond. And so I think that was one of the really cool things that I saw happen. And then the challenge became for the work that I do with virtual reality. We've been exploring virtual reality since 2014. And so we've been kind of, taking all different looks of different use cases. And it wasn't until 2018 when it really started to show an interest inside the firm with virtual reality training. And we ran with that for a little while. When COVID hit, people didn't even want to put the headsets on. And so all of a sudden we're like, okay, what's next? It didn't take more than 24 hours for teams to call us up and said, hey, can we leverage virtual reality this way? And what we saw was, even though people were going home, we saw record numbers of call volume. We had new employee hires. We had market volatility that we had to help our customers manage. We were able to leverage virtual reality to do onboarding for new associates. And that was a big win with virtual reality. And I think the reason we were ready for that is because we had a commitment to the innovation, and we had been exploring it for a while, that we were able to quickly get headsets out to those folks and leverage them for team building activities and onboarding, so they got a chance to meet each other. So we still have a lot of folks that actually were hired in this last year that have never set foot on a Fidelity campus before, and leveraging virtual reality has been one way for them to at least get to know each other.
Thanks. Yeah. And obviously you've all touched on this a little bit, right? There's the go-to-market strategy. There's productivity within your organization, collaboration, how teams work together, and you sort of maintain that company culture, especially as new folks coming in. Can you talk a little bit about some specific solutions you use technology for to address some of those things? Maybe 1 or 2 examples each. Anyone can go first.
Yeah, no,
I think we all
you'll have to repeat the question for me because I lost it. It was a long-winded question. So say it again.
Sure. So, yeah, so from a productivity, collaboration, also culture perspective, what were some specific technological solutions to help you sort of bridge the gap that COVID created? And how did you do that with technology, for example, in hiring, or for example, in how people work together on a day-to-day basis, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all seeing it right now. Like video calls are huge, and leveraging all the cloud-based solutions that you can leverage to improve communication and collaboration has been really, really important for Fidelity. Again, with my area of expertise with virtual reality specifically, we have been sending headsets out to folks across the globe, and the ability to go ahead and connect with them and get inside a virtual space and being able to see each other, whether you're an avatar or kind of a real like a digital twin of yourself, you get to see somebody. And inside VR, you can actually do a high five. And I think one of the things that Damien called out earlier was adding that body language to communication. It really is a big difference when you get inside a virtual reality headset and you actually see how it feels and you understand virtual presence inside those experiences. I think that that's been a huge game changer for our teams.
Great.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So we pitched a project in Idaho to the Air Force, and the first time we actually flew there and we saw them in person, and so we came back with their ask and made a demo, and we now couldn't fly, so the second kind of presentation was all done remotely. So we had a guy in Las Vegas, a guy in LA, Asheville, Winston, and Idaho. And so he went to the Air Force Base. We sent him headsets. We all were in the Oculus Quest, and the commanders all put on, and we were all in the experience to show them the demonstration. And these guys, you would think that we just showed them the light bulb. I mean, they were just blown away. And the neat thing, and Jamie kind of touched with spatial audio, if you walk around someone and you're talking, spatial audio does, it gives you that idea of the location of the person and what ear is closest to the person talking. So in spatial audio, if you walked away in that virtual environment, your voice gets lower and lower and lower. These guys were fooled because now they were inside the experience, inside the project that we wanted to demonstrate, and they had 100% kind of focus on what was there. Where we're all having this Zoom meeting. Some of you might have a dog that's barking, a car, the trash is getting picked up. It's a huge distraction, and you don't feel like you're participating as much as if you were in that room, in that meeting. And yeah, it's a powerful tool. And we've showed it to that type of technology to another client, and now they want a private virtual meeting space for just their teams. So, the world as we knew it, we miss it, but a better world is definitely coming.
Thanks. And Damien, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that I'm going to use the term augmented, but it very much is. I think we're having to augment all of these different tool sets to allow us to do things in ways we probably hadn't conceived 42 years ago. Even though, most of the people I think probably in this conversation right now are very much bought into the idea of virtual reality and augmented reality being something that's going to extend our capabilities. It was never, conceived to be forced on us in the way that it has been. So the interesting thing I think for all of us is that actually as human beings we're very resilient, and I think we're very adaptive to requirement as well. We haven't, I think, necessarily kind of leaned into one thing or another, but actually been quite open to looking to, I think, different types of collaborative platforms. So where we were using Adobe as an example, it wasn't necessarily as collaborative as we would like it to be. So now we're using Figma. And we might not necessarily have had to use that if COVID had come along. We would just, obviously, consistency and, I think inertia would probably we would have stayed on the Adobe platform. We haven't left Adobe because it allows us to do things that Figma doesn't necessarily do, but Figma is a much more kind of collaborative tool set for us. And then when you then marry that with video conferencing, it becomes something that allows you to do what you need to do. What we, I think, need to be very conscious of is fatigue. in all of these things. It's easy to put a meeting into somebody's calendar for 15 minutes or half an hour. But when you do that 10, 15 times a day, and then you're still trying to do your job on top of all of that as well, because people just want to check in with you sometimes, not actually have anything to say. It's just like, hey, how you doing? Haven't spoken to you for a while. But that's one of 20 calls that you're going to have in that day. So I think there has to be some boundaries. We have to, as individuals, find those boundaries for ourselves and become a lot more conscious of that. So I've introduced something to myself, which I then posted on the company Slack channel to say, I'm now introducing a no meetings Friday policy for myself. I spend more often than not, because I'm on 3 time zones, working from kind of 7 in the morning till 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's not sustainable. And, you know, just having that Friday just to kind of catch up with myself is being really good. So there are, I think, pluses and deltas to all of these things. I just think we need to be aware of what works and what doesn't work, but open to trying things as well.
Yeah, you touched on something really interesting there that we were sort of forced to deal with in the pandemic, which was formalization of communication in a way. So the inability to somebody across the table and say, hey, I have a question for you, or tap someone on the shoulder. And now we're in this position where we have to formalize everything, which it can have a real impact on just the overall productivity, state of mind, and the ability to brainstorm and hash out problems real time. Everything has to be much more deliberate. Some of the things that we were seeing with the lab, especially during the pandemic, obviously when you think about employee onboarding, somebody joining the company in a place they've never set foot in, just being able to give them that frame of reference of where is my desk located? Am I near the bathroom? Do I have a window? You know, just little things like that. Where's the cafe? Who sits next to me? How can I meet my team? You know, these little things that that, you know, are just inherent in taking a new role are all of a sudden missing. Or for example, in the manufacturing environment, being able to look at high fidelity prototypes and walk around a prototype and see it if you're building something in the manufacturing space. And one thing we were doing also with Brenner Children's Hospital is, as you can imagine, whether you're in the hospital for COVID or for any other reason, visitors were severely restricted. And so, and there is a direct correlation between patient health and well-being and the ability for them to see their loved ones. And so, one thing that we were able to do is stand up a virtual visitation program where we basically, it's like sort of like a more advanced FaceTime, but depending on the population, their familiarity with technology and the ability to get multiple family members on a call at the same time, especially when those family members are not geographically located in the same area. We can create a session for those who are hospitalized to be able to spend time with their loved ones. And that especially has been helpful in the cases where the patient might be unconscious, because you lose that ability to sit there and hold their hand, talk to them, even though they may or may not be able to hear you. So, you know, a lot of the things that we saw were related to that. I have one more question around sort of how the pandemic played out, then I'd love to shift gears and start to talk about, you know, what's next, what's coming. But what I wanted to ask was really from the perspective of what you all went through, and you're looking at these various technology solutions that you're deploying. Sometimes you're just sort of thinking on your feet, trying to find quick solutions. What did you find, I guess, surprising or unexpected, or what do you wish you would have foreseen or maybe planned and done a bit differently as the pandemic unfolded?
I'll jump in. I think for me, I mentioned this earlier, I was really surprised at how quickly people were willing to test and try a new technology like virtual reality. So you can imagine, you know, using game engine technology in a company like Fidelity, you know, people want, they want, you know, a serious platform to handle business professional conversations. And it comes with a, you know, because it's a game engine technology, a lot of people think that it's not relevant for business, but it's been a huge opportunity for us. And the fact that leaders were open-minded to be like, okay, we'll try it, right? Because they're at home now, they have more time to think through, they can read more, they can look at, maybe they're taking a little bit more risk to take a look at things like that. But I was really, really surprised at how quickly I got calls that said, we want to try it, we want to try it, right? And throughout the 6 to 8 months following that, we've had 5 or 6 groups continue to purchase headsets and do onboarding activities with their new associates that haven't set foot in the office yet. So that's been a big win for us, I think.
Great, great. Damien, John, what about for you?
Yeah,
What surprised you?
I think for us, you know, I think everyone, even on the call or out there, has at least heard augmented reality, virtual reality, but they might not have tried it. And they've probably been told here and there, oh, it's coming, it's going to be huge. But you know, if Jamie tries to sell it verbally, or Damien, you know, a lot of times we're like, yeah, whatever, I get it, okay, sure. But when one of your clients becomes the advocate, you know, and is now calling maybe one of their partners, and because I think there were a lot of collaboration within industry, hey, what are you guys doing? And people that might have been competitors became, well, not best buds, but, you know, they started to collaborate. Because the whole industry, you know, some people might look at everything as a house of cards, you know, so they wanted to support their competitor because they don't want to go because they're in the same industry, and they use the resources that they had. So, you know, we actually were getting calls because some of our older clients and new clients were actually like sponsoring us in a way, basically having those conversations. Hey, if you guys haven't tried this. And then when that call came, I didn't have to have 3 or 4 conversations with this new client. They were ready to hit, hey, I hear it's the bee's knees. we need to jump on this. What can you do? And I was still compelled to like still onboard them as a kindergartner. Like I said, well, have you tried a headset yet? They're like, no. Well, let me send you one. You know, because you know, there's always a lot of hype. You know, I kind of want you to try it out. I got some demos on it. You know, so send out. So we were doing a lot of that. Where before the pandemic, we actually were going to them. You know, I didn't mind taking a drive or getting on a plane, or even inviting them. Hey, the next time you're in the Triad, stop by the studio. Really, the education that came from us was personified when our clients were actually hawking us to their partners and clients.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I can only really echo what John and Jamie already said. I mean, the thing that kind of struck me most is that we were moving away from conversations with people like innovation managers and having more conversations with marketing managers or brand owners or whatever it might be. So often when you're talking to an innovation type individual, you're driven down a particular type of conversation or rabbit hole. And it's very difficult then to kind of get back out of that innovation bucket. But when you're actually looking at a real business problem that you're trying to solve or somebody else is trying to solve within their organization, and they're looking to you to kind of help with that process, it becomes a very different dynamic within the conversation. I think the other thing as well is that, you know, as Jamie said, people are actively looking for where that opportunity is for them. And, you know, you're actually there to help rather than sell. So it's a very interesting kind of switch. I was talking to one of the ex-creative directors of Magic Leap yesterday, and we did a live augmented reality broadcast with one of her team. She's never seen it before, and she said this, you know, was something that she thought was going to be 3, 4, 5 years away from it being reality today. And the surprise almost of her face yesterday when I was speaking to her and showing her the live function of what we do, you know, and taking that forward. And I think the other thing that is interesting, I think John had said something similar to this, is if you create a neutral base for a platform or technology, people will then come into it with their own need, their own use case, and identify what that requirement looks like for them. And I think we need to do a job as technologists to kind of make these things as neutral as possible. But I think also as simple as possible to access, because we've been looking at digital natives as an audience, but now that audience is 3 years old, so 93 years old. And how do you ensure my mum and dad are 80s, they're in their 80s. So how do I ensure my parents are going to access technology and know intuitively how to use it? And it was never designed like that, I don't think. And actually, the last year has taught us about how we simplify, and continue to do so and make it much more accessible and attainable.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's a perfect segue. But before I ask the next question, what I want to do is just remind the folks in the audience that we're coming up on the end of the questions that we set out with, and that I was planning to ask. So I welcome all of you to start typing questions in the Q&A box, or getting ready to raise your hand in just a few moments. So yeah, going back to what you said, Damien, it's interesting, you know, and I think it's a great segue because you know, as you look forward and the future of Beam in particular, what's the plan now? What's the go forward sort of, I guess, market strategy? You know, obviously you guys have been working in the space of internal communications, B2B on one aspect of it, brands reaching their customers on another, as well as celebrities and personalities reaching their audiences. And so can you talk about your strategy and what you see coming in the future and what your priorities are going forward?
Well, we want to try and make sure that we've got an app and we've got web technology. So we want to try and make sure that that is a unified ecosystem. So it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what device you're on. You can access it according to your requirement. The big thing for us is probably one, more of utility than trinkets. And I think AR needs to do a big job in education to say that actually there's an opportunity for utility within augmented reality. I think virtual reality has already done that job, because you can see that very easily in you know, companies like Audi as an example have used virtual reality to kind of accelerate some of their learning processes. But I think augmented reality is a much more scalable technology. So we need to start thinking about how we can access a much broader audience and they can access it for their requirement. Just making sure that when you land on our platforms, it does what you need it to do, and it's personalized to your requirement. So we believe that, you know, communication, especially with hopefully wearables coming into the market in the next year or two, is going to open up this exponentially, and people are going to access it and welcome it. I think, you know, I first got into augmented reality probably about 6-7 years ago, and it's taken that long, and it's been like pushing water uphill that whole time to even get it to where we are today. But I think, you know, like most technologies, I think there'll be a long curve in trying to get this accepted. But as soon as it's accepted and it's in the kind of public domain and in the consumer psyche, it will just accelerate. People will see what benefits augmented reality, virtual reality, cross reality does and can apply for them. I hope we're in the right space.
I can definitely relate to pushing the water up the hill.
Yeah, we've had those conversations before.
and Jamie, for you in particular, you know, all the things that have emerged out of the pandemic and I guess the innovation, the priorities changing, the sort of the supporting the needs during that period of time. What are you excited about as the world sort of starts to emerge out of the pandemic, and what are some gaps that you see that currently still exist that you're trying to solve with technology?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna curiously watch as people re-enter, you know, what is the interest in continuing to leverage things like virtual reality. So that's something that's on my radar. I think Damien hit on this one, the cross-platform nature in which we've previously developed experiences in VR. We need to be more agnostic. So I don't want to pick a specific headset. I don't want to pick a specific wearable. I want the technology and the content to show up where either our client or customer wants to be able to leverage it and see it. And so I think we have a lot to do there, to explore there, and how best to create that type of content so that we can share it no matter what device or wearable the consumer or our clients, our team members might or might not have. We're also going to be continuing to, when you think about an enterprise like Fidelity and you think about scaling these technologies, it's still very much in its infancy. And so we're excited to pay attention to the industry on how they start to unfold tools and ways to better manage the headsets at a bigger scale. So we'll continue to focus on that as well. And of course, the work that Damien's doing is one of my passion projects. I'm really excited about hologram work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you may or may not be aware, but John has just rolled out his VR cart to support large implementations of tens, if not hundreds, of VR headsets.
Is that a plug? Is that a plug for John?
And so, John, switching over to you, and obviously based here in North Carolina, you're working at the cutting edge of innovation, and especially with local North Carolina companies, and really guiding them through that process from small companies to large ones. What I'm curious about is what should North Carolina companies be doing right now? What should they be looking at? How should they think about this in the context of their own business? I know that's a broad question. But oftentimes when you look at advanced technologies, what you find is that it feels cost prohibitive, it feels too complicated. And so speaking specifically for the folks on the call, can you talk a little bit about what they should be doing and what they should be looking at?
Yeah, so just start to become part of the conversation. This technology is not going away. And I kind of use an analogy, if we dial back everything like 20 years and social media with Facebook and Twitter was coming of an age, if you were a company back then looking at it going, well, we don't need that, back even further, we don't need a website. We're basically in the yellow pages. Everyone can find us there. So you fast forward now, those things like the yellow pages, there's no ads, there's nothing. So if you just start to watch the industry, read an article, send your marketing person to a conference, whether it's virtual or in a year we're opening up, and learn about the technology. Currently, the technology cannot help everyone at the state that it is now. But if you start to kind of focus on it and learn about it, and you'll kind of have a better idea of when to jump in and see who is using it. Fidelity is one that recently wrote a white paper, and so did Price Waterhouse. Walmart has released some figures of how they're using it. And they're not just releasing the figures of how they're using it, they're actually bragging about it. How, Walmart took a task that took 8 hours for a learner to be taught, stuck the experience inside a headset, and went from 8 hours to teach that person to 20 minutes. So, if you were paying someone a new employee the equivalent of a hourly rate, wouldn't you rather train them in 20 minutes so they could actually be productive? So, for us, we started out in 15 to get the word out about us, and also to feel, was anyone else? We didn't know where the market was going. We created a meetup group in Winston-Salem, and it was Triad Virtual Reality. And the first time we had it, I think 3 people showed up. The next month, 6, and we grew it all the way up to over 200 members in every big city. Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, they all have meetup groups. So if you don't want to send your employee to a conference, or you're an employee, you want to learn more, then download the app and find a meetup group and see what company. You'll be surprised, not just from creators, but people that are deploying it and implementing it. So just keep up the conversation. There's plenty of blogs. There's Upload VR, which is a great blog. There's Road to the VR. There's VR Scout. There's a bunch of blogs out there that you can and they only post maybe 6 to 10 articles a week. So it's an easy read on a Sunday when you're drinking your coffee. Open it up and see what's happening. But billions of dollars are being invested, not just from Apple, Google, Microsoft, through different, from software to hardware. And I think the pandemic not just these other two, from Damien to Jamie, saw the increase in usage and deployment, and also the need. These companies saw it too, and there's over 4,000 people at Facebook Labs that is working on AR, VR, and in Microsoft there's thousands. And so, you know, for me to tell, whether it's a CEO, a president, someone of HR, just start consuming information. You don't have to write a check yet, but after reading and familiarizing yourself with the technology, I think it'll be easier for you then to go to your boss, or you're the boss, and make the decision to just get started in. Buy 6 headsets. I think Jamie would probably agree. I think, what, you started out with a half a dozen and just wanted to explore. So just start exploring, and you're going to have a wonderful time.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I want to pause there and open up to any questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question, or type in the Q&A box.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm already on, so I'll ask my question.
Perfect.
You know, the SBTDC works with between 4,000 and 6,000 North Carolina-based companies every year, primarily companies with less than 500 employees. But we do have people on this call that are interested, that are already experimenting some with this type of technology, or have some experience. I came and went through the experience that the residency program created last year, and haven't had a lot of experience with it myself. But for those companies that are doing this, we've heard about, you know, cutting training times. I've read about an experience that they did at one of our universities, where they brought people in and put them in a virtual meeting scenario, where it was people of different nationalities and backgrounds in the meeting, and it was kind of a cultural awareness exercise. We talk about things where the enhanced customer relationships, lots of interest from manufacturing companies to improve manufacturing operations and processes. So if we've got a company that was interested at this point in maybe being somewhat of an early adopter, but you know, what are the first few steps from the business side? I know you talked about the meetup groups, which I wish I'd known about that. I might have tried to get to one. Of course, I don't know how much meeting up they've been doing, unless they did it virtually over the last 12 months. But who's the Sherpa for this kind of stuff for a business that's trying to get involved?
I was looking at John thinking that he's probably the best person to answer that question. But I mean, I think that I would echo what he said about just trying it. I mean, you can pick up the headsets now pretty inexpensively and trying it. When you start talking about training and doing specific training, I think John can probably talk to this. It's a commitment to actually create the training and a cost to it. But once you do it, knowing that it is a consistent way to train every single employee with the same content is a huge game changer, right? Because today with facilitators, with facilitator-led training, each facilitator can add their own, you know, way that they actually teach the training, and sometimes the intent is lost on the way, depending on the way that facilitator chooses to do it. But in VR, it's the same every single time, right? So there is some value there, but make sure you understand the return on investment, right? Because it can get quite expensive when you start to create the content.
Sure, yeah, and we're in the process right now of we've just hired a training manager, you know, for the SBTDC, kind of standardize some of the things. So we know that there's an investment there, plus an investment in the technology. But I know that you know, I've got businesses out there that I could go talk to that if I was more knowledgeable, you know, I could give them a better idea out there. And we have several counselors that are on the call with clients listening to this too. What about?
I do want to, let me just quickly add on to that too. There's a lot of companies that are creating virtual reality content today. So you can look at places like YouTube, and within there's 360 documentaries that you can go take a look at. But also there's companies that are doing fire and safety hazard training and just general training that is, universal for all folks, where you don't have to make that investment. You lease the content to train your associates on it. And I think that's a really great avenue as well to take a look at, as opposed to creating your own specific training.
Yeah, there's a lot of general stuff that's being created that everything from a Fidelity could use, and the same exact solution could be used at IBM or a local company that has 10. That was a perfect example, the fire extinguisher safety. But then there might be something, because your process is very specific and you want to make sure that you onboard these employees the same way. So the long-term ROI is that now you have a teacher that's not going to ask a day off. There's no vacation days. It's there, and it teaches the exact same way as Jamie says, to all the employees. And with future versions of it, there is going to be eye tracking and machine learning and computer vision that actually will be able to kind of like decision tree the experience to make sure that no one is left behind. So if someone is doing the experience and they're falling behind the experience, then it will actually adjust itself to make sure that this person like redoes it. And that's like with eye tracking. If they're looking at the wrong part and they take 9 seconds longer to figure it out, the software could actually help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing too to point out, and having in Damien and I's background at Blipper, we worked with everybody from Unilever to the World Bank to Exxon, and we would often start with what the business priorities are for the year. So what are your goals for the year? Well, Exxon might say, well, we want people to leave the pump, go into the convenience store and buy something. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. Or it might be that we have a problem with our manufacturing process. We're having way too many faults and problems. We're having to do a lot of rework. Okay, let's focus on that. So I think that there is an opportunity, because really what this technology is the internet in a spatialized way, right? And so who's the use case for the internet? Well, everyone, right? It's really hard to pin that down to one specific thing. So starting with what the need is, it's not that the technology will fit every scenario, but oftentimes there could be some solutions embedded in there based upon where the business is trying to get to.
That's cool. I did. I've had talk about technical issues. Everybody had the Zoom update when we tried to get into the meeting, and then my computer decided it had to reboot in the middle of the meeting too. At the very beginning of the session, you shared a VR code that you said we could scan. And unfortunately, I could not get my phone to do it. If I wanted to look at that again, what is there a website or someplace that I can go to get it? Or?
Yeah, that was a QR code. That was actually something that I presented at the beginning.
Right.
I can share that after if you like.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I was just trying to see how I could get it because I couldn't get it during the actual meeting.
Yeah.
So if one of our clients was interested in, having a kind of one-on-one discussion about their business and where the future might take them in this area and that type of thing, is there a I mean, now it's great. I mean, I can't tell how far away you are, all the way in overseas and that type of thing. And we were talking before we began the webinar about just where were we, because you could be in the next office or you could be halfway around the world. But if we wanted to maybe connect some clients with some of you all, is it best to go through Ryan, or should they contact us and then we can try to arrange something?
The easiest thing is to contact Ryan, I think, as a central point of contact. I don't know how scalable that is for you. I'm offering you up without knowing what time commitments you have already.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a conduit, and that's one of the things we do with Metal is really serve as a conduit between what's needed of the companies that reach out to us and who could potentially deliver on that. So yeah, very happy to do that. Please feel free to share my email as well, and I can type it in the chat. Actually, chat's disabled, so.
Yeah, well, we'll get that because we really kind of like to filter them through our counselors a little bit so that we don't overwhelm you. I have kind of promised you out a little bit for a conversation, which he agreed to begin with a couple of clients, and our counselors and directors are identifying them. But this has just been so great. I feel like it's it's kind of like the infrastructure has grown so much more for this than I thought it had. As I got ready and prepared for this, it's kind of like I compare it to the electric car industry, and you used to go 26 miles or 40 miles on a battery, and now they've got them that go hundreds of miles. They're talking about putting the charging stations where they're more accessible and all that type of thing. And now, there's, I'm amazed that the headsets have gotten, the wearable type stuff has gotten so much better. There's platforms out there that people can take advantage of. And I've just learned so much from listening to you all, as well as just kind of prepping for this in general. I really think we're, it's more than emerging. I think that there's a lot already out there that a lot of from us, we're looking at it from a business perspective, that we're going to see a lot of demand for people saying, how can I leverage this? Especially every crisis creates opportunities, and COVID-19, I think, has kind of peeled back more rapidly than it would have happened some of the layers for people saying, wow, we can do things in a different way.
Yeah, I think one of the neat things is I was one of the first people that I knew, because I'm a geek, bought a smartphone, and everyone had the legacy phone, the flip phone, and you could text on it, you could do those things. And it's so funny, like you would show somebody at a party, well, what's that? Oh, it's a smartphone, and you're promoting it. You're like, oh, it does this, and they're like, well, I don't need any of that. And so those adoption of technology, it definitely is not a rabbit. It's definitely a snail. Now the snail gets faster, but it gets to that critical mass. And it's funny when you bump into that person that you originally, man, I just got this new iPhone. Do you know what it does? I'm like, yeah, man, welcome to the party. I've had mine for 5, but no, let me just tell you what this does. It takes pictures. I'm like, yeah, okay, And so that's what's going to happen. I've noticed it now in the last 3 to 5 years since VR went tethered in the very beginning. And there was untethered VR, but it really wasn't true VR. It was a very bad experience, but God bless them. It served a purpose. But when Oculus finally and HTC finally untethered it and made it an all-in-one, that was a game changer. Because if you would have asked me in the very beginning when I fell in love with tethered VR, meaning that you had a headset, it was on a wire, and it had to go to a gaming rig to run. If you would have asked me, well, when is it going to be like a baseball hat? I'm like, 10 years? I mean, really? And to see where it's come in the last 3 is simply amazing. And that goes the same thing for augmented reality, from the mobile device to even this past, and on Damien's pre-presentation, he showed the Spectacle 3, the Snap, and they just released, and you can Google it, their 4th generation. And they're futuristic max headroom like Ray-Bans, but they're only for creators, and they're pretty slick. So, it's coming fast. 2022 and 2023 are going to be big. That's it.
We got you on record saying that, John. I hope
It's gonna be big.
We are recording this. Well, let me ask real quick. I'm gonna let Ryan wrap it up before I do our obligatory thank you to all our partners that help make these happen. And I want to thank each of you for donating your time to come and share all the information that you shared. If there was one thing that you could recommend, and again, you know, we're looking at small to mid-sized companies out here and that type of thing, you know, as a first way to dip their toe in the water, or a place that they might begin. I know Ryan said, you know, start with the business case. What is it that are their priorities for this year? And I think that a lot of companies are, you know, really looking right now at what their priorities are not only to get through 2021, but looking to 2022. So what would, what's the best way for those that are interested or want to champion this in their companies, you know, to go out? You mentioned some meetup groups and that type of thing. We're all over North Carolina. So what are the opportunities?
I mean, since I'm here in North Carolina and we're in the Winston, we're right there in the center. You know, again, I think I've mentioned on this that we send headsets out to potential customers, knowing that it might lead to nothing. And we've gotten them all back. I mean, we're not sending them randomly to people. And, you know, you can sit there and read about it. You can sit there and talk about it. But until you really, truly experience it, and a close example to what you're trying to achieve, you're just not going to get it. I mean, you're going to understand it. You're going to respect it. The switches are not going to trip. And so that's why we do it. And, you know, any of these people that are even just serious about the conversation, my company would be more than willing to send them a headset for a week or two, you know, show it around, put it on, or even go to them and demonstrate it. You know, this is not going to hurt us, whether they hire us a year from now or hire a competitor. We're trying to grow. All of us are trying to nurture the industry as a whole, you know. So the tide rises all boats, and that's our mission.
That's great.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would just say try it, and make a commitment to explore it. It's going to feel funny at first, but until you start to at least try it and try to adopt it and see what the value is, it's going to be hard to convince others that it's worthy of it. So I think that that's a great first start. In fact, you know, we have a huge VR loaner program at Fidelity because we do the same thing, right? We don't expect everybody to go out and buy them, but we share them with business leaders as they're interested, because we're just planting those seeds. Hey, take a look at it, right? I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of interesting use cases out there as well. So whether the folks you're talking to are HR professionals or work on in a logistics facility, if you type in VR or AR for whatever department they're in, you're going to come up with a whole host of use cases, just because there's been countless articles and white papers written about it across sectors. So that's also a really good place to start. And I would say when you put on that headset that John mails you, definitely be open-minded, because what you might find is what you're looking for isn't what you find, and what you find is something you might need in an entirely different area or in a way that you never expected.
Don't all the universities also have 360 video tours? Like, don't all 16 campuses?
A lot of them do, yes.
Yeah, I think all 16 campuses have 360 video tours that you can see inside of your headset and understand the difference between watching it on you know, web browser versus seeing it inside a headset.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion, and something that we would have access to.
Exactly.
So again, let me thank you all. I think, Ryan, are we right at the end of our time?
We sure are, yeah. And I just want to extend thank yous to Jamie, John, and Damien. They all have incredibly busy schedules, and I really appreciate you all taking the time out to join us.
And I'm going to share my screen again, if I can find the right one. I'd like to thank all of you for being here, for putting on this great session for us. And also, we do have partners that we're funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration and the state university system. And the U.S. Small Business Administration is our co-hosts for this webinar series. They have several partners that are out there helping businesses through COVID-19 with all of the programs and business relief programs that are out there, the Women's Business Centers across the state, SCORE, the Veterans Business Opportunity Center, and then the 58 North Carolina Community College Small Business Centers across the state. We do have a webinar coming up on June 10th for those that are looking for their PPP forgiveness applications. This is all of the current information that businesses need to know to make sure they're prepared when they apply for their PPP, forgiveness of their PPP loans. The webinar, as I said earlier, it's been recorded and the slides will be available in about 24 hours on our website. You can write down the long URL, or the easy way is go to www.sbtdc.org. Click on the banner at the top of the page that says Navigating Your Business Through COVID-19, and then you'll see the webinars tab that has all the past webinars, and we'll have this one. If any of you that are on the program would like to request a virtual appointment with one of our SBTDC business resiliency counselors to discuss your business and recovering and your resiliency from COVID-19 and getting in as we lift business restrictions, go to www.sbtdc.org/ERFC, or if you get on that website, go down to the bottom of the page, click on the link that says Request Counseling. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And thank you especially to Ryan and all of our great panelists. This is a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.